Hello Mesquite, hello Nevada, hello America, and welcome to the Mesquite Weekly. I'm your host, Rudy Mortel. On November 8, 2016, the voters of the state of Nevada approved ballot question 3, the Energy Choice Initiative, which would amend the Nevada Constitution if voters approve the initiative again in the 2018 general election. Question 3 would amend state policy that electricity markets be open and competitive so that all electricity customers are afforded meaningful choice among different providers, and that economic and regulatory burdens be minimized in order to promote competition and choices in the electric energy market. On February 9, 2017, Governor Brian Sandoval signed Executive Order 2017-03, establishing the membership, chairmanship, mission, timeline, and issues to address on the Governor's Committee on Energy Choice. The committee's mission is to identify the legal, policy, and procedural issues that need to be resolved, and to offer suggestions and proposals for legislative, regulatory, and executive actions that need to be taken for the effective and efficient implementation of the Energy Choice Initiative. On July 1, 2018, the committee, after countless hours of deliberation over a period of almost a year and a half, presented its findings and recommendations. We obtained comments and statements from the legislatures representing our areas and power districts and other concerned parties. Here are a few selected video clips. So you were talking about the constitutionality of, well, I suppose
So
once the initiative is passed, in effect,
it's in the Constitution.
It's in the Constitution.
And it's unique in that it allows the legislature to have some input in it until it finally is set in stone in 2023, I think it is. Then in 2023, that's what it is.
Okay.
And in the Constitution, things don't change quickly.
Right.
The legislature can't do anything for at least 3 years. The people can't do anything unless it's brought by the legislature.
I don't know. I don't think I think it's out of the hands of the legislature right now. I mean, it's going to be up to the voters completely to find out what's going on. And like I said, if California is an even shining example of what could possibly happen to us, I think we're in trouble. Although I do think everybody should have a choice.
So, is there a concern or even, I suppose, some consideration being made for the next year's budgets, to look at substantial increases in power?
Well,
maybe not yet. I guess it's down the road yet. We can kick that can down the road to 2023 when we need to implement it, really, because after the state legislature gets done with it, it's a complicated situation. We do have a lobbyist, Warren Hardy, that I suppose with the appropriate city resolutions, can have some impact on what the legislators do, at least to make sure that we are represented, the rural district. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think he's been approached from a city standpoint. We haven't approached him yet to take a stance at the legislative level. But I think it might be a good idea to get into talks with him to find out what his direction is planning on taking. And it's probably not too late to start right now.
What I can't impress on you enough, though, and I don't believe this has received enough airtime in this proceeding, is that electric service is changing for all of you, for all of us around the world. It is changing because the technology is changing. The operative word for you is nimble. If your electric grid is nimble, the state will be successful. It must be nimble for your state to survive economically.
We did a long study of the different choices that are out there, not choices, but some of the consequences to the Energy Choice Initiative. We tried to take all aspects into it, making sure to try not to leave anything out, including the workers that potentially could be without the current jobs that they currently hold.
Question 3 is a drastic proposal that would dismantle and deregulate Nevada's existing electricity system. The state's own study shows 3 would increase our electric rates. Question 3 would also eliminate Nevada's current rooftop solar program that serves thousands of homes. And it would shut down plans for 6 major solar energy projects designed to double Nevada's clean energy production. Please look into the facts about this risky and costly measure.
We were also privileged to have State Senator Dr. Joe Hardy join us for an extended conversation about the most significant legislative event to challenge the state of Nevada since its inception.
Change the Constitution.
Right.
That's an issue. And as you well are aware, there are things that happen
Right.
in that period of time.
So between now and 23, we're pretty well constitutionally set, and then any change will be
After
more than just a bit of, arm wrestling.
We're going to have to take it to the vote of the people,
Again.
or 2 sessions of the legislature, and then the vote of the people. So it's at least a 3 to 5 year period before you ever can change something that you say, oh no, we didn't do it the right way.
Right.
Now, for instance, let's just say hydropower in the state of Nevada,
Mm-hmm.
by legislative decree, is not considered renewable,
Okay.
which doesn't make any sense because water goes downhill and
Right.
and it rains and it goes downhill and you're not using any of that resource. It just stays, and then you go through a turbine and produce electricity, and it's probably as renewable energy as anyone can ever do, and it always works. It's
Mhm.
not like the sun has to shine.
Right.
It's not like the wind has to blow.
Mm-hmm.
It's going downhill. All of those kinds of things
Right.
are things that,
Right.
and we're going to mess around with the Constitution in order to do something. Things change.
Right.
So solar panels become cheaper. There's things that the Constitution, it's a 3 to 5 year period before you can change anything.
I think one of the gentlemen that was, I suppose, introducing the ECI at the concluding session, he simply stated that, we need to be, he was in support of the ECI. He said, but the requirement is that we need to be nimble because of the changing technologies.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite see that.
Constitution is not nimble.
Exactly. So that
is
right.
That is not nimble. Nimble isn't even every 2 year legislature.
Right. Right.
So nimble is different than set in stone.
So we're talking a commitment where the commitment may not be one necessary, or maybe
Yeah.
actually obstructive to any future technological development.
And we sometimes use euphemistic words
Okay.
to convince people that we're right. For instance, the word choice.
Okay.
Choice is a euphemistic way of expressing something that gives us some comfort that, okay, we have choice. I mean,
Mhm.
we love choice in
Right.
the United States of America.
Of course.
Give me my choice.
Yes.
So this particular initiative is cloaked in the word choice.
Mm-hmm.
So energy choice.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you and I a choice of who we buy electricity from.
The reality is different, though, or you see it that way.
So the problem with that is manifold. I mean,
Manifold. Yeah.
manifold. It's huge. And so what I did at 3 o'clock in the morning when I prepared this for the Rural Electric Association people
Mhm.
is I wrote down my problems. And one of the things I did in 2003 is I said, we lose energy in a line. So if you have Hoover Dam, for instance, that creates energy, then the line that goes to California, by the time that energy gets to California,
You have
it's
that.
less.
Right.
So there's what we call line loss.
Right.
And if there's line loss in this energy choice thing, who's going to pay for that? Is it going to be the start of the renewable project? Is it going to be the end user of the... Who's going to pay for the line loss? And it's significant. And then one of the real questions that the governor's people addressed as a real question is, who's the provider of last resort? So when, for instance, I talked with a person from California who deregulated. Some time ago they said, we're going to deregulate.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you've had brownouts. And she said, no, we haven't. I said, well, yes, you have.
Case in point being
And
Enron historically?
so how do you say you haven't had or brownouts when you have? I mean, it's the record. Well, not where I live. I said, well, okay, that may well be true. But California has had brownouts, and, pretty much everybody has been affected by that.
Right.
And she said, no, we haven't. And then she thought, she said, well, not very many.
Okay.
So there's a lot of history of deregulation and what happens.
Right.
And Texas has done it better than California, if I could pick on California.
Okay.
But when you deregulate, who's guarding the hen house?
Well, isn't there the Federal Energy Regulating Commission?
They don't.
Reliability is one of their
they don't
issues,
look at the Commerce Clause across state lines and what we do and what California does. One of the things that I've been impressed with is the CalISO, or the California ISO, has been used by the Governor's Committee as we could join the California ISO, and then we would have a means to figure out our energy distribution.
Right.
And I don't know how everybody else feels, but I've never really been impressed with California's ability to get things done in such a way that it happens quickly, and it takes care of people, and it does it in such a way that everybody's happy. So California, I tell people in the legislative process, I say, when you come to the table, don't use California in a sentence. Because there's these things that California does that we don't do and we don't want to do. So if you use California as the example, it isn't necessarily a good way to pass your bill. So what California does when they deregulated, they had brownouts, they had challenges, and it has taken them probably 10 years before they say, we have some stability. But California, in their quest to become totally renewable, they're still buying power from coal plants, even though they ostensibly don't want to do that. The sun doesn't shine all the time, the wind doesn't blow all the time, and the good news is, like Oregon, they count hydro as a renewable. So if we were to do something with this energy choice, we better count hydro as a renewable source. Otherwise, we're not going to meet our portfolio standard.
Is there a standard within the ECI that says you need a certain amount of renewables within the mix, or
the state,
is that something that the state legislation will determine?
Yeah, the state determines that, and we've already got a theory of where by 2020 and by 2030 and by 2050 what we're going to do. Well, good luck with predicting 2050 and 2030.
Well, how do we see that operating? Because you have a power provider that's out of state, perhaps, as a choice. I mean, how do we determine solar energy that's produced in state, that how much of that he needs to actually distribute within the state, if somebody chooses that energy choice?
I'm glad you asked that. Quite frankly,
it's not going to happen.
We have the ability to export power.
Right.
So if we export power, and California needs more power than what they can produce in the bounds of their state for simple reasons, one of which is NIMBY. not in my neighborhood.
Okay.
You know, they don't want a power plant, a solar field,
right.
a windmill, a dam in their neighborhood.
Right.
You know, in their collective neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to be able to produce as much power unless they get it from somewhere else. So Nevada's in a position where we can produce power and sell it to California.
Okay.
That is a good thing. We can do that without
Right.
this
Right.
energy choice thing.
Right.
The energy choice thing, I mean, where I'm going with this is I'm not a proponent of the energy choice.
I understand.
Who pays more for power, California or Nevada? California businesses literally take that into account when they say, do we stay in California or do we move to Nevada
Mm-hmm.
or Texas or somewhere else?
Mhm.
So their power bills are much more than they are in Nevada. Okay, so then I'm saying, well then, what was the advantage of deregulation if your power bills are more than ours? And ours are regulated in such a way that we have the Public Utility Commission of Nevada that determines what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do.
Well, do you believe that deregulated is actually the correct term? When I look at our own Overton Power District, I mean, we are regulated or not regulated at all. PUC has no say-so. But it's the voters that determine the direction that the Overton Power District takes because they have an elected board.
Right. They're accountable.
Exactly. So
Yeah, they're accountable.
I mean, I've seen some of the ads, and they talk about, you know, that there are monopolies in Nevada. Well, I suppose in the technical sense of the word, it's true, but in reality, it's not, is it?
It's not. And so the rural communities have a lot of investment in this process because they're the ones that are going to be at the mercy of whoever is producing power that no longer has anybody saying, no, you can't charge that much.
Right.
They're the ones that, you know, their wires are way long, and so it's to their benefit to have a secure source of power
Mhm.
without having to make contracts with different people at different times in order to be able to generate power
Right.
and risk those not just brownouts but blackouts when they don't have the peak flow, for instance,
Right.
because of someone down the line said, no, this customer is bigger than that customer, and so I'm going to give the bigger customer the power, and the little customer is kind of at the end. And so that's why the rural communities are worried. And I
Well,
represent rural
Right.
communities.
So even when you talk about, I suppose, energy choice, the OPD, the Overton Power District, does that actually. They choose who their energy provider is because
Right.
they themselves
Yes.
generate no energy,
Yes.
but they distribute it.
Right.
But they make an energy choice. They do it in 5-year increments, a
Yeah.
contractual obligation, which
Yeah.
doesn't require a constitutional change. but-
Right?
So, in effect, we already are,
You are.
engaged in
Yes.
energy
You-
choices,
you're
but it's
getting
done.
It's a contractual thing.
Right.
You have a choice of who you do.
Right.
Now, the interesting thing about this energy choice, no one that I've ever heard say publicly in a sentence that this deregulation is going to save you money.
Because I think
It's not.
everyone
Nobody is
doesn't want to
willing
look at
say
the
that.
elephant in the room.
It-
It's not.
They can't do that. They can't say that.
Would you say that's because of the unbundling effect?
Yeah, I mean, there's predictability. When you
Right.
have predictability, businesses like predictability. When you
Right.
have predictability, you know what you're going to get.
Right.
Well, right now we have predictability because the PUC says this is what you can do and what you can't do. This is what the contract says. This is
Mhm.
what you can
Mhm.
do and what you can't do. We have predictability now.
Okay.
What we're proposing is not predictable.
Right.
It's not predictable.
And the game is different.
And who, if you were a company, are you going to sell your power to somebody that's a big person that pays you a lot of money, or to a little person in the rural Nevada who doesn't pay you as much money.
Much less service required.
I mean, you're going to make a decision. Okay, who do I give the power to, my big customer or my little teeny customer?
Well, isn't, but what energy choice tends to say is this, that it's up to the consumer, meaning the residential consumer can choose which energy choice to make.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
The lines, so Nevada Energy, for instance, will have the lines, but it's not up to them who puts power into the line.
They may not maintain the same level of reliability that we currently have the opportunity to do so.
And and what we do, as you point out, by having your device, we depend on electricity and consistent electricity. You have to plug it in.
Well, eventually. But you're right. I mean, everything, all the infrastructure surrounding this has a lot of wires attached. Not here, but the cell towers, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, we depend heavily on energy. And it's a determining factor in everything we do, businesses as well as, as our social standards of living. We have, I suppose, a high need for this energy just to be happy. It's our pursuit of happiness element that, we need in order to do that. Particularly true in Nevada. Because right now we wouldn't be able to live very happily in this heat without sufficient energy to power the air conditioning.
And that's the other thing, is Boulder City.
Yes.
I live in Boulder City.
I meant to get to that. Go ahead.
And so we have a dam
Right.
that we helped build back in the day.
Right.
And so we had a contract and have a contract that this is, how much we're going to get from River Dam.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hydropower is cheaper than anything. I mean, you don't have to build anything. It's already there. It just, the water goes down the hill and da-da-da-da-da. So Boulder City still has peak usage, like today. Like this last week, 115, you're going to use more electricity. So one of the things Boulder City did, for instance, when I was on city council, we would call up the golf course that was named after a waterfall and say, can you turn off your waterfall for this period of time because you're using a kilowatt of power that we need to power air conditioners. And they say, okay, they're good neighbors. They say, okay, we'll turn off our waterfall, and then we don't have to buy on the grid energy that is, twice or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever times much, because it's off contract.
Right.
So now Boulder City saves money, which means the citizens save money because of the cooperation of a big energy user that isn't life-saving, that's willing to work with us.
Right. But I think that's being overly optimistic about users being willing to work with requirements such as that. I mean, the Bellagio is not going to turn off their fountains.
Right.
It affects tourism. So.
Right. I agree.
So, but I think Boulder City has done also something that's unique in that your revenue source is almost entirely from the rental of an area of an acreage, my understanding. And
I'm not going to be able to tell you the exact ones, but it probably isn't the main source, because
it's a large source.
Yeah, if you have a lease, for instance, that's $1 or $2 million a year, and your budget is $20 million a year,
right,
then it doesn't.
I understand.
So it's significant, obviously, and so we have leased land in order to be able to meet some of our budget needs in the city, but it's not the bulk of the budget.
And the tenant on it happens to be a solar provider.
Yeah, we got land and
right. And again, energy choice may be the case that because I suppose solar energy, let's face it, the elephant in the room is this: it doesn't work at night. and the batteries aren't there, you know, to be able to work it economically. So, so I think we've had certain regulations within the Nevada energy providers, okay, OPD and all the others, okay, that said, well, we need to accommodate, you know, those solar providers and make up for those differences in other ways, but we need to have a certain amount of input. And I think ECI is challenging that. Have you seen the commercials?
No.
Oh, would you like to see one?
Yeah.
Okay. They're challenging this with information which I find to be, you know, mind-boggling. And here's one.
NV Energy is a monopoly, your only option for electricity now. And there's nothing you can do when they raise your rates. Yes, on question 3, the Energy Choice Initiative creates competition. Now NV Energy has to compete for your business. They raise rates, you go to another provider. That's why rates in Energy Choice states are 14% lower. Competition is good. Don't let anyone, especially a monopoly, tell you otherwise. It's that simple.
California is 14% lower than us. I mean, that is...
Yeah, but you see what they're saying here? They're not saying anything about coal, but they're putting this image out there for the public to see, and they go, oh my God, we're generating a lot of coal power.
Yeah.
The actual the reality is, it's less than 2%.
Oh, yeah.
And then they say, oh, we're going to provide all this capability to renewable energy, solar and windmill.
I'm almost stammering now.
Okay.
The NV Energy cannot, quote, raise their rates. They have to go through a process with the public utilities.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's a process, and so they have to
Right.
show that they can raise their rates and
Right.
what the effect is. And they can't, quote, raise their rates without going through that whole process. And that's
Understand.
why we actually have, contrary to what that says, we have lower power rates than California.
And we have the reliability, which is also demanded.
And so that thing about 14% lower, I'm not sure where they got that statistic. I mean, it may apply to somewhere else, but for Nevada, we're doing pretty good.
Okay. And, I mean, the commercial itself, it looks as if it were, you know,
It's cute.
incorrect, misleading, ambiguous,
It's cute.
cute. Okay. So, anyway, there's a section within the, I guess, the recommendations that the commission made, and it deals with technology very heavily. Is that something that you see even as being possible to, you know, have I guess the people you choose your energy from comply with? And it would reach across state borders, and how would that even be implemented? Is that
Well, the obvious simple technology that they can do is
Right.
put a smart meter on your home.
which you've done already?
And then you have a choice.
Right.
And that's the choice you have. You can say, okay, these are the peak times that I'm using energy, so I really won't use my or my laundry between, if it's between 2 and 8, let it wait, kind of thing. So people who are sensitive to a process of being charged according to your peak and your low.
Mm-hmm.
So now we can have somebody who says, okay, at peak rates, we're going to charge you more.
Different rates, okay.
And that would be a technology thing that people would quickly figure out.
Okay.
If they charge me more at peak times, then I'm not going to use that energy at peak times.
Mm-hmm.
So there's simple things that technology will do.
Right.
But
But
what
the
technology
more-
doesn't use electricity?
Well, the more complicated things are.
I mean, seriously, what technology doesn't use electricity? I mean, they all do.
Yeah, everything uses power.
Right.
Whether it's horses or
So-
whatever, it uses power.
So
But-
I can simplify something to
Right.
the point where it's absurd, but
Right. But one of the things that, you know, the thousands of some odd homes have rooftop solar panels. And there's confusion. Are they customers or are they providers? And they're both, actually. And that's where the problem comes in, as to how would you legislate and how to address this. Is the solar panel producer a provider? And how do you get them into the mix of energy choices to make? Can I choose that my neighbor provides my energy? Well, obviously, that's the part that's very difficult to legislate. On the other hand, will somebody who provides energy actually take the hit? In other words, if I provide a surplus of energy, will they reimburse me for that?
Now, we have those conversations now without energy choice
We do,
initiative.
but we have state
So-
regulation that actually
Yeah, I
helps
mean,
it.
we're doing that right now, and those are discussions that happen now. I have to go on the record. I love solar. I think it's efficient and it saves everybody money, as it were, and is an opportunity. And you and I may remember the days where you went to a self-reliance fair, and they brought in their little solar oven, and they said in 2 hours you can bake a loaf of bread, and that way if the power goes out you still have something. Well, these people with solar panels on their house, they can run their air conditioner, they can run their refrigerator at peak,
Right.
and they can cook, and they can do all of those things. So I'm not opposed to solar at all. I'm not opposed to wind at all. I'm not opposed to hydro at all. What my challenge is the perception of the energy choice comes with consequences.
Right.
As any choice does, consequences, and the consequences of putting something in the Constitution are a problem.
It may make the most precious resource we have, which is sunlight, obsolete in Nevada. Could that be one of those consequences?
You're not going to turn off the sun.
Well,
in
but you
any
will
time
turn off the
soon.
solar panels.
But the solar panels,
Less attractive as an investment.
right. So you're going to. There are so many things that I can't even guess what's going to happen, and I'm
I understand. It's
going to put it in the Constitution. No, I'm not going to put it in the Constitution. I don't like that.
It's going to be a long-term struggle. Senator Settlemyre, I think, mentioned in his closing remarks, he said, I hope we're doing the right thing. If it passes, that they need to go through this process.
Well, the good news is this energy choice task force that the governor has is preparatory if it passes. If it doesn't pass,
It's
then
academic.
all of that stuff is good material and can be done and used in different ways,
Right.
but it's not forced on people
Right.
to do it. So they have a lot of good stuff that they've looked at and they've planned if it passes. And anytime you use the word choice, people like that. So, what is it that they need to understand and not understand? And I don't know that we've had a vetting of the whole process yet. But like I say, I've got, 1.5 pages of questions that haven't been answered.
Right.
And I don't look for them to be answered. And so I'm going to put all those in the Constitution. I'm not going to put them in the
I
Constitution.
understand. I
to
know what you
clarify
said.
that.
I understand what you said.
So no, I am not in favor of the energy choice initiative.
All right. Well, on that note, can we conclude?
Yes.
Okay. Senator Hardy, thank you so much for
Rudy,
this
thank you.
opportunity to get your comments on this very, very important issue for Nevada, all of us residents as well as businesses. So, thank you once again.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming.